The auction yard was quiet, too quiet for a place where lives were usually ruined by noon. Dust drifted like smoke, the sun settling low as if it didn't want to watch what was about to happen. And in the center of that stillness stood Clara Wynne, wrists bound with a thin rope, chin lifted higher than anyone expected from a woman about to lose everything. People whispered that she'd brought it on herself. That her late father's debts had swallowed the ranch whole. That the bank wanted her gone. That a woman alone had no place fighting the kind of men who came with papers and guns, but none of them saw the fire in her spine. She didn't tremble. Didn't plead. Didn't look at the men bidding on whatever future she had left. She only stared straight ahead, until her eyes snagged on the stranger who stepped out of the shadow of the blacksmith's awning. A tall man. Broad-shouldered. Dust on his coat like he'd ridden through half the territory without stopping. A scar crossed one cheek, faint, healed, but old enough to say he'd survived something that tried to end him. His hat sat low, shadowing eyes that held a storm. Wyatt Hale. A rancher most folks barely spoke to anymore, a man who'd lost a wife, a life, and any desire to belong to the world again. He wasn't the type to show up at an auction. And certainly not the type to raise his hand. But he did. Not once. Not twice. He kept raising it until every other man stepped back. And just like that, the hammer cracked. Sold. Clara's breath hitched, the first break in her composure. Wyatt stepped forward, voice low, meant only for her. "I ain't here to own you," he said. Just to stop them from doing it, but the moment those words left his mouth, the air behind them shifted, men muttering, lawmen turning, debts stirring dust like rattlers in the brush. Something had begun, and neither of them understood the cost yet. The storm wasn't over. It was just choosing its riders. Clara walked beside Wyatt, wrists now cut free, though the red marks remained like bruised bracelets. They reached the hitching post where his horse waited, a tall roan with a temperament like its owner, silent, watchful, patient until it wasn't. Wyatt didn't speak at first. The silence stretched, long and uncertain, until he finally said, "I didn't buy you, Clara. I bought your freedom. What you do with it ain't mine to claim." But Clara's jaw tightened. "And what about the debt tied to my name? The ranch, the men who wanted more than land?" Her voice wavered, not in fear, but in anger sharp enough to cut rope. Wyatt looked away, thumb grazing the saddle horn. "That debt won't vanish easy. Men who think they're owed don't forget." Her breath shivered in the cold air. "So what do I owe you?" "Nothing," he answered instantly. Too quickly. Too forcefully. "I don't want payment. Don't want trouble. I'll ride you as far as you need, then you're free to go." But freedom meant nothing if she had nowhere left to stand. Clara crossed her arms, stepping closer, eyes searching his face. "Why did you step in? You don't even know me." Wyatt swallowed, hard. "Because once, someone saved me when I wasn't worth saving. I reckon I've owed the world a good deed since." Before Clara could answer, hoofbeats rolled in from the north road, slow, deliberate, not the hurried clatter of travelers. Wyatt stiffened. Clara felt the shift, the tension like a rattler coiling. 3 riders emerged, silhouettes against the sinking sun. Bank men. Debt men. The kind who didn't believe an auction's end was the end. One called out, "Hale. That girl ain't yours to walk off with." Wyatt stepped in front of her. "She belongs to no one." The lead rider spit tobacco. "We'll see about that." Wyatt's hand drifted toward his coat, near his revolver. Clara's heart pounded. The real fight hadn't begun, but it was close now. Circle, closing the space, shrinking their world down to a breath. "You interfered with a legal acquisition," the leader snarled. Wyatt didn't flinch. "You mean you were fixing the auction?" The man smirked, tapping the handle of his holstered gun. "You got a big mouth for someone who lives alone at the edge of nowhere." Clara stepped forward before Wyatt could answer. "My father's debts are paid," the judge ruled it. "You have no hold on me." Laughter drifted through the dying daylight, cruel and sharp. "Girl, money ain't the only debt in this world." Wyatt moved then, one step closer, hand hovering over the butt of his gun. "Say another word toward her," he said quietly, "and you'll pay a price you can't afford." A long tense moment followed, wind tugging at coats, horses snorting, dust gathering in swirls like spirits rising from the earth. Then came the sound that changed everything. A gun cocking. Metal scraping. Intent turning lethal. Clara froze. Wyatt's eyes narrowed. The leader's hand had drifted too far, just enough to spark the inevitable. Wyatt drew first. A warning shot. Fast. Controlled. Deliberate. The bullet hit the dirt between the man's boots, spraying dust up his legs. The message was clear: next time, he wouldn't miss. All three riders flinched back, hands lifted instinctively. But the leader's snarl twisted into something darker. "You just made yourself an enemy, Hale. You think we'll let this go?" Wyatt stepped closer, chin raised. "You want a fight? Pick your place and pick your day. But you leave her out of it." The man backed toward his horse, eyes burning holes through the dirt. "You don't get to decide the day," he spat. "We do." They mounted fast, galloping away in clouds of rising red dust. But Clara knew it wasn't over. Wyatt knew it too. As the riders vanished into the open plains, Wyatt exhaled slowly. "This just got worse," he whispered. And Clara felt the truth settle in her bones. Danger wasn't coming, it was already here. 9. Night fell soft and wide across the prairie as Wyatt led Clara to his ranch, a modest cabin with a porch that creaked like an old storyteller. A single lantern glowed through the window, warm against the dark. Inside, the quiet felt almost holy. Wyatt lit another lantern, its amber halo catching dust motes in the air. Clara stood near the door, uncertain, hands twisting together as if she didn't know where to belong. "You can stay here tonight," Wyatt said, voice lower than before. "The roads ain't safe." "Not after what happened." Clara nodded, though she still wouldn't meet his eyes. "I'm not used to kindness without expecting something behind it." Wyatt paused. "Then expect nothing. I ain't a man who trades comfort for debt." But when he moved past her to hang his hat, she noticed his hands weren't steady. She wasn't the only one unsettled. Later, over a small supper, Clara traced the rim of her tin cup. "Those men, they won't stop." Wyatt looked up, gaze steady. "I know." "Then why risk yourself?" He hesitated, searching for words he rarely used. "Because losing someone changes a man. Makes him see what's worth protecting." Clara softened, the distance between them shrinking without either moving. "Your wife?" He nodded once. "Lila. 3 winters gone. Took more of me than I knew I could lose." Silence lingered, gentle, shared. Clara reached into her pocket, pulling out a small wooden carving, a horse, no bigger than her palm, worn smooth from years of handling. "My father made this when I was 5, she said quietly. "He said it'd remind me to keep running, no matter what chased me." Wyatt's voice dropped. "And now?" Clara closed her fingers around it. "Now? I think I'm tired of running." Their eyes held, something unspoken rising between them. Hope, maybe. Maybe more. But hope wasn't enough to silence the danger outside. Wyatt stood, jaw tight. "We'll face what comes. Together, if you'll have it." Before Clara could answer, the distant thunder of hooves split the night. They were back. Wyatt blew out the lantern with one sharp breath. Darkness swallowed the room, leaving only moonlight pouring through the window like a silver blade. "Stay low," he whispered. Clara crouched behind the table as Wyatt slid his rifle off the wall, chambered around, and stepped onto the porch. The night air crackled with tension. Hoofbeats circled the ranch. Shadowed figures dismounted, 5 of them this time. More guns. More anger. The leader stepped forward, torch in one hand, pistol in the other. "Hail," he shouted. "You bought yourself into our business. Now you're gonna bleed for it." Wyatt leveled the rifle. "Walk away. Last warning." The torch hit the ground first. Gunfire erupted. The porch splintered under bullets. Wyatt fired back with precision born from old grief and older battles. 2 riders went down, rolling into the dust. Clara, heart hammering, crawled to the side window and spotted another man creeping toward the barn with a torch. "No," she breathed. "Not the horse. Not his home." Before fear could stop her, she grabbed the carving, her father's small wooden horse, and slipped out the back door. Moonlight painted her figure pale as she sprinted toward the barn. The man turned too late. Clara swung the lantern she'd grabbed off the wall, shattering it against his arm. Flames hissed across the dirt. He yelped, dropping the torch, scrambling back. Wyatt saw the flash of fire. His pulse froze. Clara, exposed, fighting for him, for them. He fired one clean warning shot. The remaining riders fled into the night, leaving their wounded behind. When the dust settled, Wyatt rushed to Clara, hands cupping her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, breath trembling. "I wasn't going to let them take you home." He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. "Clara, you could have died." "So could you," she whispered. "But I'd rather fight beside you than run alone." Something in Wyatt broke and mended all at once. He pulled her into his arms, slowly, reverently, as if asking permission without words. She didn't pull away. Epilogue. Weeks later, the land was quiet again. The law had come, taken statements, hauled the surviving men away. Their leader would stand trial in Carson City. And Wyatt's ranch became theirs. Not by debt. Not by obligation. But by choice. One evening, Clara stood on the porch watching cattle graze in the fading light. Wyatt came up behind her, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "You paid my price," she murmured. Wyatt kissed her temple softly. "No. I paid a debt life owed me, and found my heart again." The camera would pull back here, wide shot, mountains glowing, wind brushing the grass in waves. 2 figures standing together on land they saved, and land that saved them. Fade out.